want to start with saying we spent 9 months learning how to be software engineers, not public speakers, so there's got to be a little bit of leeway in how we present this. But yes, as outlined, our project's Family Day Out Planner, which this is our team and our roles within it. Obviously, my name's Matthew. I suppose I focused more on the architecture and overall guides of the project and how we got there, as well as some fun little things at the end, Slack and Swagger integration, and a little flask.
Okay, I'm Yuan. In this project, I'm mainly working on the backend, and also I did some database integration for the user information management. And also we create the unit test to make sure our code work as expected. And also we did something to interact with the external APIs to get all the information we need. Jackie.
Hello everybody, my name is Jacqueline. So for this project, I mainly work on the front-end part, use the HTML, React, and the Google APIs to make everything work. So our story, how do we come up with this idea? Because Yuan and Matthew, both of them are parents. I used to work in the childcare industry, so we wanted to make something that can benefit children and family, and also something that we can use in the future. So that is how we come up with the idea of Family Day Out Planner. We wanted to give families some suggestions of what they can do while they're available for their children and the families. Yeah, so that's the idea.
So exactly what it is, we'll find my. I spent a lot of time. Oh no! I spent a lot of time getting the play button to work at the request, so I wanted to make sure.
There you go. Show everyone the website.
That was Dylan's suggestion. So this actually is live, and that's sort of our amazing thing. Does anyone have a place in mind, somewhere they want to travel to, going to travel to? Want to see what's happening in an area? Could be anywhere. We tested France. Yes.
Or like a country.
It could be town. So
Lakes entrance.
Sorry, Lakes entrance.
Yeah, perfect.
So yeah, we type in the lake entrance at the place over there, and
you know what's fun about live demo? Use your Google API and upload. We knew this back then. Okay. You know, we've done this about 6 times today. We didn't have a single issue.
A hotspot,
You know what we can do? We can come back to the.
Yeah, you can jump on my hotspot. Password's Jed123. Sorry, 123, 123.
Jed?
Jed 123, 123.
Capital J?
No, lowercase.
Do you work for Optus by any chance?
Make it easy.
Fun. You know what? We will warn.
there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
You can see that we've been using the Google API package to make the autocomplete work. And over here, you can choose a date. Which date you would like to go?
Sunday or the next Sunday?
The next Sunday. Yeah. So we have also used the day picker package to have that fancy calendar working at the moment. And while you're clicking on the search, you will see all of the events available on that day at lake entrance. You will also see there's a floating bar of temperature, the local temperature on that day happening, floating on the top of the page while you scroll down the page. Is there any event that you think in particular that you're interested in?
Maybe like some beach or something.
Or you can just pick one.
Oh, the second one, yeah.
Second one?
Sorry, you're not following the script.
Yeah, so if you're like interested in one of the events, you can click on the link. It will redirect you to the home page of that event, so you get to know more info. And you can see if you click on the Google Map link, it will redirect you to the Google Map. Here you can just type in your location, and it will show you how you can get to the event.
That's
Yeah. So
That's it, rinse and
That's the
repeat.
website.
And the other part of the demo was we spent time creating, it's more from a technical side point of view, but documentation, creating the Swagger pages so that if we grew in, this became part of a large organisation, obviously microservices being important, other people can use this for, you know, big. So there's our, pretty much what we're demoing, that's our project. When coming up with our idea for the project, we sort of didn't focus on the what but the how. It was more important to us that we use what we've learnt to create something that works well when we have internet, and something that we can allows for scalability and everything that's sort of important in the tech industry, not just mashing things together. That started with the idea of following the solid code, so OOP principles, solid code, make sure that we really aggressively follow these principles when we coded, in the hope that things would break less often. And we found that when we actually pull requests followed it, it was relatively solid code.
Okay, and also we did the unit test. You know, the code without unit test is unfinished. So we include the unit test in our project to make sure there's no surprise when you're running our code. Actually, we use the unit test from the Python built-in framework to implement our unit test cases. And currently, we have the code coverage around 8 and 90%. And by the way, I did use the unit test to find some bugs in our business logic. And for the interact with external API, as we don't own any data related to events and the weather, so we rely on the external API to get the data and aggregate them to the front end so the user can see the information.
Yeah, at the same time, we have also created our own API using Flask and the full documentation as you saw before using Swagger.
Sweet. So the first thing we did, obviously, in the project, we sort of tried to diagram out from a technical point of view how everything fits together, flows together, and so we could understand how everything talks from front to back and front out, and also expression grind down, but get to what our actual MVP is as opposed to all the things that will look pretty.
Yeah, so when the user first open up the browser, this is the front-end pages where they first get access to it. We've been using React mainly to create the web page, but we also have used CSS and HTML to styling the page.
Obviously, any requests go through a web and application server. Again, you can probably guess what framework we've been using in Holberton. It's hosted on Flask and Unicorn as a web server.
Okay, yeah, we come to the backend part. In this part, we're mainly using Python as a language. And as you can see from our demo, so the user type in the location and select the date. And then when they click the search button, our backend journey gets started. Now we have the information about the location and the date. And this information will pass into the system request handler. And within this, we have two separate modules, the weather request handler and the event request handler, to get the data from external API. And this data will be stored and formatted in JSON in detail, which is the data transfer object, and then returned to the front end. Before and after we make the real API call, we validate the data to ensure all the exceptions are captured before we send it back.
Cool. Then once we were happy with that, we then looked about how we can grow beyond what we saw, things we didn't necessarily get to. So the first thing we wanted to implement was an ability for someone to log in, save searches as key history, that sort of thing, and then also keeping track of everything that went wrong, which is also important to know when your application fails. Yuan worked mainly on.
Okay, yeah. This part is also we introduced the user authentication in our project, so the user can log in and their search history can be saved. For the function like the sign up, login, and logout stays in the authorization handler. And then we use the circle alchemy to map our database table to the Python classes. And also it helps interact with my circle database. And for the token handler, we use the JWT, the JSON Web Token, to generate and decode the token for the user identification.
And the fun part, we created a lot of custom exceptions to catch anything that possibly we could break. And anytime an exception is raised, we set up a Slack channel that will get notified just with the Slack webhook. And actually, when we were testing this morning, Jonathan came up and goes, "What's wrong with your app?" I got a message on my Slack. So we sort of broke it this morning. So as you can see, the planning was not just what, but how, and then thinking big picture beyond just getting the website to work.
And at the end, we use the built-in Docker to run the servers to make everything work, so the client are able to use it.
Sweet. So project management and how we followed it, we did try to follow a sort of agile approach. I say sort of, it's pretty much out of the textbook. We broke minimum viable product down into 3 sprints, pretty clearly defined with what we wanted to achieve, and then each of these user stories were broken out into cards and tasks. Handle and follow, and then just using Trello board to keep track of every task as we do it. And then we extended, once we finished the MVP, we planned, we sort of moved through 2 more sprints, the first one being the Swagger, Slack, and system logging, which we finished, and then we'll about 3/4 of the way through that 5th sprint, when everything sort of stopped. And then we even had these other plans, these other APs that we didn't even plan out beyond just functionality and what we wanted to do. But yeah, it was important that we kept to a agile approach and try and practice those lessons.
So challenges are, we have been through so many challenges throughout the journey of this project, and the very first one that we faced is we ran out of the API calls. So one of the solutions that we made is we captured and saved the real API. So every time when I was doing the front end and designing something, that I will always get the default data. So I'm not running out of the APIs anymore. We have a test endpoint to make it happen.
Okay, for this part, the unit test part is I have faced the challenge of how to test the functions that talk with the real API, because all these responses are dynamic and they keep changing depending on the different situations. So after some investigation, we just found a good way is probably mock up the data is a more practical way to solve this issue. So we use the magic mock in the Python unit test library to simulate the API response so that we cover the units that involve the API calls.
The next couple of challenges are mainly more around project management. And it's the same thing, probably everyone ever, always problems developing front and back end synchronously and having them speak and plug them together, which is always fun, and just staying on track with our tasks and not getting, I suppose domain is not the right word, but not going outside of what we're meant to be doing. And that was pretty much just entirely done using our Trello board, a Slack channel communication, but also pull requests we found were very handy because it helped when Jacqueline developed something on the front end, let's say, when she raised the pull request, we could see her code and get an understanding of how she's actually tackling those problems without ever having to learn or actually code it ourselves, and then vice versa. When we create the endpoints, you can see how they're operating to code the front end. That was pretty handy for us.
Yeah, the other challenge that we faced, I think one of the other group has faced as well, is that we didn't really know React before this project, so we have to learn from scratch. So I watched millions of YouTube tutorials. I even signed up a Udemy course to help me understand what's going on with React, get familiar with the syntax, and then I'm learning while doing to get everything work.
So that's it. We did find the most embarrassing photo of John with pride. But a big thank you. Obviously, everyone starts somewhere, and C was mentioned, but the reality is I think there was a lot of 10 o'clock Friday night calls or a Sunday afternoon where we were struggling, And Jonathan seemed to not have a life and would always be there. So that was an incredible, just incredible help. I don't think any of us would have probably got through it without the over-the-top support we got from him. But then also the people who gave us the scholarships to study and the support we've got from it out of this as well. Yeah. I want to leave that photo up while we're doing questions. So, ready?
Yeah, cool. First of all, congratulations. Looks really impressive. Yeah, what you guys have accomplished in a really short amount of time. Yeah, one of the things I picked up that was particularly impressive that you guys focused on things like that, that we would do a lot in REA, just as general practice, but are not necessarily really sexy, but important, like Docker, Swagger, tests, error handling, and it's good to see that, they're the pretty good skills that you take with you. But yeah, and a general question, I guess, like, so over the course of the whole Holberton course, like, what are some of the things that you've learned about, like, if you think about yourself at the beginning, you think about yourself at the end, like, what are some of the things you've learned about yourself through this process?
I think for me, it's not. It's like I learned a lot of things, but I just got the confidence. I'm not afraid of the things I don't know, because these 9 months I kept learning the things I don't know. I feel myself is just get used to the things I don't know, and I will always find a way to learn the things we need. Yeah, I think that's the confidence we have during this whole journey.
And the other thing is that reaching potential, you need to always believe that you can always do better than you expected, better than you know yourself. So like it's very hard for someone to actually like step outside of their comfort zone to changing the career or learning something that is in a totally different areas. So having the ability to learn new things is something that we learn most throughout the course.
I think personally, probably not talking and listening. Probably the biggest things I've learned. My teammates, Cohort will attest that in any of our group learning, I love to talk. It's all fault. So yeah, learning. I think the soft skills, I suppose, is probably for me. The technical stuff come and has come just sort of naturally, but the soft skills that teamwork's important. And then also, as you mentioned, the unattractive side of it. 100 lines of code has 100 lines of unit tests, has 100 lines of documentation. And just getting used to having that technical depth as part of the job, regardless of how fun a unit test is to write or data is to mock.
Favorite part of the course?
At the beginning, I really loved the PLD, because at the beginning we don't know a lot of things, so we can discuss and we can ask a lot of silly questions. But yeah, I feel like I personally really love the PLD.
I feel like my favorite part is while doing this project, when I finally realized that front-end is my passion throughout this course. Because at the beginning, I don't really have a clear idea of what I'm gonna do in the future, even though I'm doing the software engineer. But we are touching lots of different areas throughout the course. So yeah, I'm actually full of passion, and I'm very confident, and I'm being what should I say, initiative while learning and observing. So yeah, I think that's the bigger part.
Probably to the disagreement of everyone else, I really love C. So I really enjoy the technical side. It's just who I am, but learning even like pointers and all everything we did at the start that makes everyone shut up. Because now when we're coding, I'm sitting there even now, so starting the job and working, looking and coding and going man, nothing is as difficult as trying to understand how I pass a pointer to a pointer so I can pass a string in C. Nothing's that complicated. And getting through that. So, and then understanding it, knowing what an integer is fun.
Okay, I think, I got one thing to add is I really love the environment Holberton, create. So in our cohort, there's no competition at all. Everyone is here to help. Like if we got stuck on something, and if one person found out the solution, and they are here to help. So yeah, I really love this. Yeah, no pressure about the competition at all.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Well done, guys.